You wake up every morning and immediately reach for your phone. Before your feet even touch the ground, you're already measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. Their vacation photos, their business announcements, their perfect families. And somewhere deep in your chest, that familiar ache settles in. The ache of feeling left behind. The ache of wondering why your breakthrough hasn't come yet. I am Solomon, and I built the greatest kingdom this world has ever seen. Not by watching what my neighbors were doing, not by copying the strategies of other kings, but by turning my eyes inward and upward. By focusing on the one person I had complete control over, myself. You see, while you've been busy studying other people's success, you've been starving your own potential. While you've been counting their gold, your own treasure chest remains buried under layers of distraction and comparison. Every minute you spend analyzing someone else's path is a minute stolen from walking your own. But today, something shifts. Today, you stop being a spectator in your own life and become the architect of your own empire. Not an empire built on sand like the ones you see crashing down around you, but one built on the unshakable foundation of self-mastery and divine wisdom. This isn't another motivational speech that leaves you feeling good for an hour, then forgotten by dinner. This is a complete rewiring of how you approach wealth, purpose, and power. This is about becoming the person who others study, not the person who studies others. The question isn't whether you're capable of greatness. The question is whether you're ready to stop looking sideways and start looking within. Because everything you need, every resource, every connection, every breakthrough you've been searching for in other people's stories is already waiting inside your own. If you're ready to close the door on comparison and open the door to your true calling, then stay with me. And if this message is already stirring something deep in your spirit, subscribe now, because you're about to discover truths that will change not just how you think about wealth, but who you become in the process of building it. Number 1. The man who gives up too soon reveals how little he truly desired. You tell yourself you want it more than anything. You say you would do whatever it takes. You pray about it, you dream about it, you talk about it with passion that could move mountains. But then the first real test comes. The first month of silence, the first rejection, the first moment when the path gets steep and your lungs start burning. And suddenly, that fire in your belly becomes a whisper. That determination becomes doubt. That commitment becomes convenience. I am Solomon, and I have watched countless men and women stand at the threshold of their destiny and walk away because the door didn't open fast enough. They convinced themselves they wanted wealth, but what they really wanted was comfort. They thought they desired success, but what they actually craved was the fantasy of success without the reality of sacrifice. Here is a truth that will cut deep into your soul. The speed at which you quit reveals the depth of your desire. When a man abandons his dream after a few attempts, he is not revealing the strength of the obstacles. He is revealing the weakness of his hunger. The mountain didn't defeat him. His own shallow longing did. Think of a seed buried in the earth. For weeks, nothing visible happens. The soil looks exactly the same. Rain may not come. The sun may be harsh. But beneath the surface, in the darkness, roots are growing. The seed doesn't quit because the world above looks unchanged. It continues its work in secret, drawing strength from sources no one can see, preparing for a breakthrough that will surprise everyone except the seed itself. But most people are not like seeds. They are like impatient children who plant something today and dig it up tomorrow to see if it's growing. They destroy their own progress with their need for immediate proof. They kill their dreams with their demand for instant evidence. I built the greatest kingdom in history, but not in a day, not in a month, not even in a year. There were seasons when my enemies mocked me, seasons when my own advisors questioned my vision, seasons when the treasury was low and the future looked uncertain. But I had learned something that separated me from ordinary men. Genuine desire doesn't negotiate with circumstances. It doesn't make deals with difficulty. It doesn't offer excuses to obstacles. When I was young, I watched my father David face Goliath. The giant had terrorized Israel's army for 40 days. 40 days of mocking, 40 days of fear, 40 days of delay. Lesser men would have concluded that God wasn't going to act. They would have found theological reasons to retreat. They would have called their cowardice wisdom. But David's desire to see God glorified was deeper than his fear of looking foolish. His hunger to defend Israel was stronger than his need for safety. And in one moment, what looked like impossible became inevitable. This is what separates champions from casualties. Champions measure their desire not by their feelings but by their actions, not by their comfort but by their consistency, not by how they start but by how they continue when starting becomes suffering. Your emotions will lie to you. They will tell you that setbacks are signs. They will whisper that delays are denials. They will convince you that resistance means you're on the wrong path. But emotions are weather, not direction. They change with circumstances. True desire is like the North Star. It remains constant even when clouds hide it from view. Passion is beautiful, but it is also unreliable. It burns hot when conditions are perfect and dies cold when pressure mounts. But decision is different. Decision is the choice you make once and honor 1,000 times. It is the commitment that survives your changing moods and shifting circumstances. It is the anchor that holds your ship steady when storms try to drag you off course. I have seen men with average talent build extraordinary empires because they refuse to quit. And I have seen men with exceptional gifts die in mediocrity because they retreated at the first sign of resistance. The marketplace doesn't reward potential. History doesn't remember good intentions. God doesn't crown those who almost persevered. Here is what the wise understand, that the foolish never learn. Every worthwhile pursuit has a built-in testing period, a season designed to separate the serious from the curious, a time when heaven remains silent to see if your commitment is louder than your complaints. This isn't cruelty, this is cultivation. This is how soft hearts become strong and shallow desires become deep convictions. The valley you want to escape may be the very place preparing you for the mountain you want to climb. The waiting that feels like punishment may be the training that prepares you for promotion. The resistance that looks like rejection may be the refinement that qualifies you for greater responsibility. But here is the tragedy. Most people quit in the valley. They give up just steps before the climb begins. They surrender just moments before the breakthrough. They stop believing just hours before the miracle. The mountain looks furthest when victory is closest, because that is when the enemy of your destiny fights hardest to convince you to turn back. Do not let temporary circumstances become permanent conclusions. Do not let momentary setbacks become lifetime surrenders. Do not let today's struggles convince you that tomorrow holds no solutions. Your desire is being tested, not to see if it's real, but to make it real. Every day you continue when you want to quit, you are growing roots that will support the tree you are becoming. Every time you choose persistence over pleasure, progress over comfort, purpose over popularity, you are building the character that can handle the success you're seeking. The man who gives up too soon doesn't just lose his dream, he loses his chance to discover who he really is. He loses the opportunity to develop the strength that only comes through struggle. He loses the wisdom that only comes through weathering storms. He trades his potential for temporary relief and wonders for the rest of his life what might have been. But you have a choice. You can join the multitude who quit when the going gets tough, or you can join the minority who discover that the going gets easier once you decide that quitting is not an option. You can be another casualty of convenience, or you can be a champion of consistency. The question is not whether you have what it takes to succeed. The question is whether you want success more than you want the comfort of giving up. Because everything you desire is waiting on the other side of your refusal to quit. Number 2, everything you seek begins with a sincere question: what do I truly desire? You say you want to be wealthy, but what you really want is to feel valuable. You say you want success, but what you're actually seeking is significance. You say you want more money, but what your soul is crying for is more meaning. And because you're asking for the wrong thing, Heaven stays silent while you grow frustrated with prayers that seem to bounce off the ceiling. I am Solomon, and before I became the richest man in history, I had to answer the most honest question a human heart can face. What do I truly desire? Not what sounds impressive when spoken aloud. Not what looks good on social media. Not what makes others nod in approval. But what do I, in the deepest chamber of my soul, actually want? This question will terrify you, because it demands truth in a world built on pretense. It requires you to strip away the masks, the performances, the carefully crafted image you've spent years building. It forces you to sit alone with your authentic self and admit what you've been afraid to acknowledge. Most people never ask this question sincerely because they're afraid of the answer. They're afraid they might discover their desires are smaller than they pretended. They're afraid they might realize they've been chasing someone else's dream. They're afraid they might find out they've been living someone else's life. But here is what the wise understand. Clarity is the beginning of all divine intervention. God cannot bless a confused heart. Heaven cannot provide for a conflicted purpose. The universe cannot conspire to help someone who doesn't know what help looks like. When I became king, the Lord appeared to me in a dream and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." This was the ultimate test. I could have asked for anything. Long life, victory over my enemies, great riches, beautiful women, unlimited power. But in that moment of absolute honesty, I discovered what I truly desired: wisdom, the ability to discern right from wrong, the capacity to lead well, the understanding to make decisions that would honor both God and my people. That single moment of clarity changed everything. Not because I asked for something impressive, but because I asked for something true. My desire was born from reverence, not vanity. From responsibility, not selfishness. From a sincere recognition of my own limitations, not a grandiose proclamation of my own greatness. And because my desire was pure, heaven responded powerfully. God gave me not only the wisdom I asked for, but also the wealth and honor I didn't ask for. Because when your desires align with divine purposes, you receive more than you even knew to want. But this is where most people fail. They skip the hard work of honest self-examination. They rush to the asking without doing the reflecting. They want the blessing without the breakthrough. They want the provision without the purification. Here is a spiritual principle that will transform your life. Writing is a prophetic act. When you write down your true desires, you are not just recording thoughts. You are creating thoughts. You are giving form to what was formless. You are making visible what was invisible. You are speaking into existence what was only a whisper in your soul. But most people are afraid to write because writing makes things real. As long as your desires remain vague, thoughts floating around in your head, they can't be judged. They can't be measured. They can't be held accountable. But when you write them down, they become contracts with your future self. They become promises you must keep or excuses you must make. The mind is fertile ground, but it needs more than good intentions to produce a harvest. It needs the clarity that comes from honest examination. It needs the precision that comes from written declaration. It needs the accountability that comes from documented commitment. I remember a merchant who came to my court complaining that his prayers for prosperity went unanswered. When I asked him what exactly he was praying for, he gave me a dozen different answers. He wanted enough to be comfortable, but not so much that he forgot God. He wanted success, but not at the cost of his family. He wanted wealth, but not the responsibility that comes with it. His prayers were not requests. They were negotiations. His desires were not clear. They were conflicted. So I gave him an assignment. I told him to spend 7 days in solitude, writing and rewriting his desires until they became crystal clear, until he could state in one sentence exactly what he wanted and exactly why he wanted it, until his heart and his mind and his words were perfectly aligned. 7 days later, he returned with a different countenance. His eyes were clear. His voice was steady. His request was simple. I want to build a trading business that employs 50 families and operates with such integrity that it becomes a testimony to God's faithfulness. Within 2 years, He had achieved exactly what he wrote. This is the power of clarity. It doesn't just focus your prayers, it focuses your actions. It doesn't just align your words, it aligns your decisions. It doesn't just change what you ask for, it changes who you become in the process of receiving it. But clarity requires courage. The courage to admit that some of your desires are shallow. The courage to acknowledge that some of your prayers are selfish. The courage to confess that some of your goals are motivated by insecurity rather than inspiration. Many people pray for prosperity while holding an inner image of themselves as unworthy. They ask for abundance while believing they deserve scarcity. They request blessing while expecting disappointment. And then they wonder why their prayers seem powerless and their progress seems impossible. Your internal image is more powerful than your external words. What you truly believe about yourself, about money, about success, about worthiness, creates the invisible boundaries of your life. You cannot receive what you believe you don't deserve. You cannot achieve what you secretly think is impossible. You cannot become what you inwardly reject. This is why the question, "What do I truly desire?" is so crucial. It forces you to examine not just what you want, but why you want it. Not just your conscious goals, but your subconscious beliefs. Not just your stated dreams, but your hidden fears. When you write your desires with complete honesty, you invite God to respond with complete precision. You move from vague hoping to specific requesting. You transform from confused wishing to clear wanting. You graduate from powerless dreaming to purposeful planning. But here is what separates the wise from the wishful. The wise understand that true desire must be married to true reverence. Desires born from ego will be frustrated by reality. Desires born from greed will be corrupted by their own fulfillment. Desires born from fear will be sabotaged by their own success. But desires born from reverence, nourished by responsibility, and expressed through service, these desires heaven honors. These desires the universe supports. These desires become not just personal victories but communal blessings. So I ask you, what do you truly desire? Not what you think you should desire. Not what others expect you to desire. Not what sounds spiritual or impressive or socially acceptable. What does your heart, in its most honest moment, actually want? Write it down. Make it clear. Make it specific. Make it measurable. Make it meaningful. Make it bigger than your own comfort and smaller than your own ego. Make it worthy of divine investment and worthy of your total commitment. Because everything you truly seek is waiting on the other side of that honest answer. Number 3. Physical strength never built an empire. A prepared mind did. You spend hours perfecting your body, but minutes preparing your mind. You invest thousands in your appearance, but pennies in your mental development. You work tirelessly to build muscle, but lazily when it comes to building mental discipline. And then you wonder why your external strength never translates into internal success. I am Solomon, and I built the greatest empire in human history, not through the power of my arms, but through the preparation of my thoughts, not through physical dominance, but through mental discipline, not through bodily strength, but through spiritual wisdom. Here is a truth that will shatter your illusions about success. Your body has natural limits, but your mind has supernatural potential. Your body will age, weaken, and eventually fail. But a mind trained in wisdom, disciplined in thought, and prepared for battle can build kingdoms that outlast flesh and bone. Look around you. The empires that endure are not built by the physically strong. They are built by the mentally prepared. The businesses that thrive are not led by those with the biggest muscles. They are guided by those with the clearest thinking. The leaders who influence nations are not necessarily those who can lift the most weight. They are those who can carry the heaviest thoughts and make the hardest decisions. Physical strength is impressive for a moment. Mental strength is impressive for a lifetime. Physical power can intimidate enemies. Mental power can transform them into allies. Physical preparation gets you ready for a fight. Mental preparation prevents the need for fighting altogether. Yet, everywhere I look, I see people obsessed with building bodies that will decay while neglecting minds that could create legacies. They spend fortunes on gyms and supplements and trainers, but they won't invest in books or mentors or education. They measure their progress in pounds lifted, but never in wisdom gained. They track their physical growth religiously, but ignore their mental stagnation completely. This is not wisdom. This is vanity disguised as virtue. This is insecurity masquerading as strength. This is fear of mental challenge hiding behind the facade of physical discipline. I remember a young warrior who served in my court. His body was like a fortress. His muscles were like iron. His physical courage was unquestionable. But when faced with complex decisions, his mind crumbled like sand. When required to think strategically, his thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. When pressured to solve problems that couldn't be defeated through force, he became as helpless as a child. One day, he came to me frustrated. "My king," he said, "I am the strongest man in your army, yet I feel powerless in life. I can defeat any enemy in combat, yet I am defeated by my own thoughts. I can break chains with my bare hands, yet I cannot break free from my own limitations." I looked at this mountain of a man and saw something he couldn't see about himself. His physical strength had become his mental weakness. He had relied so heavily on his body that he had never developed his mind. He had trusted so completely in physical solutions that he was helpless when faced with mental challenges. So I gave him an assignment that would change his understanding of true strength. For 6 months, he was forbidden from any physical training. Instead, he was required to spend 4 hours each day studying wisdom, literature, meditating on complex problems, and practicing mental discipline. He was to exercise his mind the way he had been exercising his body. The first month was agony for him. His mind, unused to sustained focus, would wander after minutes. His thoughts, undisciplined by practice, would scatter with the slightest distraction. His mental stamina, weak from neglect, would exhaust quickly. He felt weaker than he had ever felt in his life. But gradually, something began to change. His mental muscles began to develop. His thought patterns became more organized. His ability to concentrate improved. His capacity for complex reasoning grew. His mental endurance increased. By the end of 6 months, he was a different man. Not weaker because his body had softened, but stronger because his mind had hardened. Not less capable because his physical edge had dulled, but more capable because his mental sharpness had increased. He returned to me with tears in his eyes. "My king," he said, "I thought I knew what strength was, but I was worshiping the shadow while ignoring the substance. I was building the servant while neglecting the master. I was strengthening the tool while weakening the hand that wields it." This is the revelation that changes everything. Your mind is the architect of your destiny. Your body is merely the construction worker. The worker is important, but the architect determines what gets built. The worker provides the labor, but the architect provides the vision. The worker can build strong, but only the architect can build lasting. Mental preparation is not just intellectual exercise. It is spiritual warfare. Every day, your mind is under assault, from doubt, distraction, discouragement, and defeat. Every day, negative thoughts try to establish strongholds in your consciousness. Every day, limiting beliefs attempt to convince you that your dreams are impossible. Physical training prepares you to fight external enemies. Mental training prepares you to fight internal ones. And the internal enemies are always more dangerous because they have access to your thoughts, your beliefs, your self-image, and your decision-making process. A disciplined mind is like a fortress wall around your dreams. It keeps out the thoughts that would sabotage your success. It filters the information that would confuse your purpose. It rejects the emotions that would derail your progress. It maintains the focus necessary for long-term achievement. But most people's minds are like cities without walls. Every random thought can enter. Every negative emotion can take up residence. Every discouraging word can establish a stronghold. Every limiting belief can set up a throne. The wise build walls. They choose what thoughts to entertain. They select what voices to believe. They decide what images to hold. They determine what beliefs to strengthen. They are not passive victims of whatever floats through their consciousness. They are active guardians of their own mental territory. This is why I spent more time preparing my mind than grooming my appearance. This is why I invested more in wisdom than in weapons. This is why I prioritized thoughts over things, ideas over images, meditation over muscle. And here is what I discovered. A prepared mind is the ultimate weapon. It can solve problems that strength cannot break. It can open doors that force cannot budge. It can build bridges that power cannot construct. It can create opportunities that muscle cannot manufacture. The battles of life are not won by impulse. They are won by intention. They are not won by reaction. They are won by preparation. They are not won by emotional response. They are won by disciplined thinking. When criticism comes, a prepared mind has already decided how to respond. When obstacles appear, a prepared mind has already planned alternative routes. When opportunities arise, a prepared mind has already developed the capacity to recognize and seize them. When pressure mounts, a prepared mind has already built the strength to withstand it. This is the difference between those who succeed and those who struggle. The successful have prepared their minds for the challenges that defeat the unprepared. They have rehearsed responses to situations before those situations arise. They have strengthened their thinking before their thinking is tested. Physical preparation gets you ready for known challenges. Mental preparation gets you ready for unknown ones. Physical strength helps you lift what is heavy. Mental strength helps you carry what is important. Stop building your body while neglecting your mind. Stop investing in your appearance while ignoring your thoughts. Stop strengthening your muscles while weakening your mental discipline. Your empire awaits, but it will only be built by the architecture of a prepared mind. Number 4. Failures were my most expensive school, and also my most valuable. You hide your failures, like shameful secrets. You edit them out of your story. You pretend they never happened, or minimize their impact when forced to acknowledge them. You treat them as evidence of your inadequacy rather than ingredients of your education. And in doing so, you waste the most valuable curriculum life offers. I am Solomon, and I want to tell you something that will shock those who only know the legend, not the man. Before I became the wisest king in history, I was the most foolish prince you could imagine. Before I learned to make decisions that blessed nations, I made choices that nearly destroyed my own life. Before I understood how to build an empire, I had to learn how to rebuild myself from the ruins of my own mistakes. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the raw material from which success is forged. It is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your real education. It is not proof that you are unworthy of victory. It is preparation for a victory worth celebrating. But here is what separates those who rise from those who remain fallen: how they interpret their failures. The fallen see failure as final. The risen see failure as foundational. The defeated view mistakes as disqualification. The victorious view mistakes as qualification. I remember the early days of my reign, when my inexperience nearly cost me everything. There was a dispute between two mothers, both claiming the same baby was theirs. In my arrogance, I rushed to judgment without fully understanding the situation. I made a decision based on limited information and personal bias. The result was a disaster that shook confidence in my leadership and taught me a lesson worth more than all the gold in my treasury. That failure taught me something no advisor could explain, no book could describe, no theory could convey. It taught me that wisdom is not knowing all the answers. Wisdom is knowing how to find the right answer. It taught me that leadership is not about making quick decisions. Leadership is about making right decisions. It taught me that authority without understanding is tyranny, and judgment without discernment is injustice. That failure became the foundation of my most famous moment. The next time two women came to me with a disputed baby, I was ready. Not because I had succeeded before, but because I had failed before. Not because I was naturally wise, but because failure had made me desperately hungry for true wisdom. The solution that made me famous around the world was born from the humiliation that almost ended my reign. The insight that established my reputation for justice grew from the mistake that nearly destroyed my credibility. The wisdom that kings traveled continents to hear was cultivated in the soil of a failure that left me sleepless and broken. This is the paradox that pride cannot understand. You must fail at something before you can truly succeed at it. You must be humbled by your ignorance before you can be elevated by your learning. You must taste defeat before you can appreciate victory. Failure is a harsh teacher, but it is also a fair one. It doesn't play favorites or pull punches. It doesn't care about your background, your connections, or your intentions. It evaluates you based purely on your actions and their consequences. It gives you grades you cannot negotiate and lessons you cannot skip. But failure is also the only teacher that can reach the parts of you that success cannot touch. Success teaches you what works. Failure teaches you why it works. Success shows you what to repeat. Failure shows you what to avoid. Success builds your confidence. Failure builds your character. Most people fear failure because they think it defines them. But failure doesn't define you. Your response to failure defines you. Failure doesn't determine your identity. Your recovery from failure determines your identity. Failure doesn't predict your future. Your learning from failure predicts your future. I have watched men with natural talent waste their gifts because they were afraid to risk failure. I have seen women with brilliant minds remain mediocre because they chose safety over significance. I have observed leaders with great potential never fulfill it because they preferred the comfort of certainty to the growth that comes through struggle. Fear of failure is actually fear of learning in disguise. It is resistance to growth masked as wisdom. It is an allergy to progress dressed up as prudence. And it will keep you small, safe, and insignificant for the rest of your life. But those who embrace failure as education, who welcome mistakes as mentors, who treat defeats as degrees in the university of life, these are the people who eventually graduate to greatness. They understand that the tuition for true success is paid in failures, not dollars. The curriculum for authentic leadership is written in mistakes, not manuals. Here is what I learned through my failures, that I never could have learned through my successes. Humility is the foundation of all lasting achievement. Every failure humbled me. Every mistake reminded me of my limitations. Every defeat forced me to acknowledge my need for wisdom greater than my own. Success can make you feel invincible. Failure reminds you that you are human. Success can make you think you have all the answers. Failure shows you which questions you haven't even thought to ask. Success can make you proud of what you know. Failure makes you hungry for what you don't know. The man who has never failed has never truly tried anything difficult. The woman who has no failures in her past has no victories in her future. The leader who cannot tell stories of mistakes cannot teach lessons of mastery. But here is the tragedy. Shame keeps most people from extracting the value from their failures. They are so embarrassed by their mistakes that they bury them instead of studying them. They are so humiliated by their defeats that they try to forget them instead of learning from them. They waste their most expensive education because they are too proud to admit they needed schooling. Shame that paralyzes is worthless, but shame that teaches is priceless. Embarrassment that hides is destructive, but embarrassment that humbles is constructive. Regret that condemns is toxic, but regret that corrects is transformative. Every failure contains a gift, but you have to unwrap it through honest reflection. Every mistake carries a message, but you have to listen for it through the noise of your wounded ego. Every defeat holds a lesson, but you have to extract it through the hard work of self-examination. The questions that transform failure into education are simple but difficult. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? What would I do differently? What did I learn? How can I apply this lesson moving forward? What does this teach me about myself, about others, about life? Most people skip these questions because they are more interested in feeling better than getting better. They want comfort more than growth. They prefer sympathy to solutions. They choose excuses over education. But you are not most people. You understand that failure is not your enemy. It is your educator. You realize that mistakes are not disqualifications. They are qualifications. You know that defeats are not destinations. They are detours that lead to better routes. Your failures are not footnotes to your story. They are foundational chapters. Your mistakes are not things to hide from. They are treasures to learn from. Your defeats are not reasons to quit. They are reasons to get wiser, stronger, and more prepared for the victory that is coming. Every king has fallen before he learned to rule. Every master has failed before he learned to succeed. Every legend has been broken before he learned to build. Your failures are not the end of your story. They are the expensive but invaluable education that prepares you to write a story worth reading. Number 5. Every visible wealth is preceded by invisible construction. You see their victory, but you missed their vigil. You witnessed their breakthrough, but you weren't there for their breakdown. You admire their harvest, but you have no idea about their hidden years of planting, watering, and waiting in seasons when nothing seemed to grow. I am Solomon, and the kingdom that made me famous was built in the shadows long before it shone in the spotlight. The wisdom that impressed queens was cultivated in quiet moments when no one was watching. The wealth that amazed nations was accumulated through daily disciplines that looked insignificant to outside observers. Here is a truth that will transform your understanding of success. Everything magnificent you see was once invisible. Every empire began as an idea. Every fortune started as a decision. Every kingdom was first built in the mind before it was constructed in reality. But we live in a world obsessed with outcomes and ignorant of processes. We celebrate results while ignoring routines. We honor achievements while dismissing the daily actions that made those achievements possible. We want the glory without understanding the grind that produced it. You scroll through social media and see someone's business success, their beautiful family, their impressive achievements, and you think it happened overnight. You assume they were lucky, connected, or naturally gifted. You don't see the years of rejection they endured. You don't know about the nights they worked while others slept. You don't hear about the sacrifices they made while others made excuses. This is the great deception of our time, the belief that success is sudden when it is actually sequential. The illusion that achievement is accidental when it is actually the result of thousands of small, deliberate actions taken consistently over time. I remember a young craftsman who came to work on my temple. Every day, he would arrive before dawn and work with meticulous attention to detail on carvings that would be placed so high on the walls that visitors would need to strain their necks to see them. Other workers mocked him for his painstaking effort on pieces that might go unnoticed. One day I asked him, "Why do you invest so much time in work that few will see?" His answer revealed the heart of a master. "My king, the God who commissioned this temple sees every detail. The angels who inhabit this space will know the quality of my work. And I must know, when I lay my head down at night, that I gave my best to what I was called to do, whether anyone applauds or not." 20 years later, that young craftsman had become the most sought-after artisan in the kingdom. Kings from distant nations commissioned his work. His reputation for excellence preceded him wherever he went. But the character that made him famous was formed in the invisible moments when no one was watching, when no one was praising, when no one would have known if he had done less than his best. This is the principle that separates those who build lasting success from those who chase temporary recognition. Excellence is a habit, not an event. Integrity is a lifestyle, not a performance. Quality is a character trait, not a marketing strategy. The life of someone who truly prospers often looks ordinary, even boring, to outside observers. They wake up at the same time every day. They follow the same routines. They make the same disciplined choices. They invest in the same consistent practices. To the casual observer, it looks like nothing special is happening. But beneath the surface, a building is rising. Stone upon stone, decision upon decision, day upon day, a structure is taking shape that will eventually amaze everyone who sees it. But the construction happens in the secret place, where only the builder and God can see the progress. Society values the spectacular, but God watches the systematic. People are impressed by the dramatic, but heaven honors the disciplined. The world celebrates the momentary, but eternity rewards the consistent. If you are still under construction, do not compare yourself to finished palaces. The most beautiful buildings were once just holes in the ground. The most impressive towers were once just blueprints on paper. The most magnificent temples were once just visions in someone's mind. Construction is messy. It's noisy. It's often frustrating. There are delays, setbacks, and moments when you wonder if the project will ever be completed. There are days when progress is invisible, and nights when you question whether the effort is worth it. But every legitimate building goes through this process. The tragedy is that most people quit during the construction phase. They get discouraged by the mess and forget about the vision. They get frustrated by the process and abandon the project. They get tired of the work and walk away from the wealth that was being built. They don't understand that construction must precede completion. They don't realize that building must happen before blessing. They don't appreciate that the invisible work determines the visible worth. God tests a man in the unseen to know if he can handle the scene. He observes your character when no one is watching to determine if he can trust you when everyone is looking. He evaluates your faithfulness in private to decide if he can promote you in public. This is why shortcuts don't lead to lasting success. Quick fixes don't create solid foundations. Fast wealth built on weak character will crumble under pressure. Sudden success given to unprepared hearts will become sudden destruction. The gold mine that produces real wealth is not found in the ground. It is found in the daily grind of disciplined choices, consistent character, and faithful actions taken when no one is applauding. The treasure you are seeking is buried in the mundane moments when you choose excellence over mediocrity, integrity over convenience, long-term thinking over short-term gratification. Every morning when you wake up, you have a choice. You can invest in the invisible construction of your character, your skills, your relationships, and your reputation. Or you can focus only on immediate, visible results that may impress people temporarily but won't sustain you permanently. The man who invests in invisible construction may look ordinary today, but he will look extraordinary tomorrow. The woman who builds in secret seasons will shine in public seasons. The person who plants in the dark months will harvest in the bright months. All true construction is slow, because all lasting things must be built with care. What rises too quickly usually falls too easily. What grows too fast often lacks the root system to survive the storms. What appears suddenly often disappears, just as suddenly. But what is built slowly, carefully, deliberately, with attention to detail and commitment to excellence, this stands the test of time. This weathers the storms. This becomes the foundation for even greater construction. Your palace is under construction right now. Every disciplined choice you make is laying another stone. Every moment of integrity is strengthening the foundation. Every act of faithfulness is raising the walls. Every decision to do right when no one is watching is adding to the beauty that everyone will eventually see. Do not despise the days of small beginnings. Do not get discouraged by the invisible progress. Do not quit because the construction is taking longer than you expected. The most magnificent buildings were not built in a day, and neither will your most magnificent life. Your visible wealth is coming, but it is being preceded by invisible construction. Trust the process, honor the timeline, and keep building what only you and God can see until everyone sees what God has built through you. Number 6. Man's no is never the same as God's no. You asked for the promotion and they said no. You pitched your idea and they rejected it. You applied for the loan and they declined it. You reached out for help and they turned you away. And somewhere in your spirit, you began to believe that their no was final, that their rejection was God's rejection, that their closed door meant heaven's closed door. I am Solomon, and I want to shatter this lie that has kept more people in poverty than any economic crisis, that has destroyed more dreams than any external circumstance. that has defeated more destinies than any enemy army. Human rejection is not divine rejection. Man's no is not God's no. Earthly doors that close do not lock heavenly doors that are waiting to open. The opinion of people who can see only today does not override the promise of a God who sees forever. When I was young and had just inherited the throne from my father David, the established leaders questioned my ability to rule. They whispered about my inexperience. They doubted my wisdom. They suggested I was too young, too untested, too unproven to lead a great nation. Their no was clear. No, you are not ready. No, you cannot handle this responsibility. No, we do not have confidence in your leadership. But God's yes was louder than their no. Heaven's approval was stronger than earth's disapproval. Divine endorsement was more powerful than human criticism. And history proved that what God said yes to, no amount of human no could cancel. This is the principle that will liberate you from the prison of people's opinions. God's promises are not subject to human votes. Divine destiny is not determined by popular consensus. Heavenly plans are not canceled by earthly rejection. The very people who said no to me in private became the ones who celebrated my wisdom in public. The leaders who questioned my abilities became the ones who sought my counsel. The nations that doubted my strength became the ones who sent gifts to secure my friendship. But this transformation didn't happen because they changed their minds. It happened because God changed their circumstances. Here is what mature faith understands. No is often not rejection. It is redirection. It is not a door being slammed shut. It is a door being temporarily closed while a better door is being prepared. It is not heaven saying you are unworthy of blessing. It is heaven saying you are being prepared for a greater blessing. When people say no to you, God may be protecting you from settling for less than His best. When doors close in your face, God may be saving you from walking into the wrong room. When opportunities are denied, God may be preparing opportunities that are better than anything you could have imagined. But this requires a level of spiritual maturity that most people never develop. It requires faith that can see beyond present circumstances to future possibilities. It requires trust that believes God's timing is perfect, even when His timing is painful. It requires patience that can wait for the right door while others are rushing through the wrong ones. I remember a merchant who came to me devastated because every trading partner he had approached had rejected his proposals. He was convinced that God was closing the door on his business dreams. He was ready to abandon his vision and settle for employment under someone else's vision. I counseled him to wait, to use the time of rejection for preparation, to strengthen his proposal while strengthening his faith, to improve his presentation while improving his character, to expand his knowledge while expanding his patience. 3 months later, a delegation arrived from a distant kingdom seeking exactly the kind of trading relationship he had been proposing. But now he was ready in ways he hadn't been ready before. His preparation during the season of rejection made him perfect for the season of acceptance. The no he had received from local partners was God's way of preparing him for the yes he would receive from international partners. This is the wisdom that transforms rejection into redirection. Every no is information, not condemnation. It tells you something about timing, preparation, or alignment, but it tells you nothing about your ultimate destiny. Maybe the no is telling you to wait. Maybe it's telling you to grow. Maybe it's telling you to adjust your approach. Maybe it's telling you to strengthen your foundation. Maybe it's telling you to expand your vision. Maybe it's telling you that you're asking the wrong person, in the wrong season, for the wrong reason. But it is never telling you to give up. It is never telling you to quit. It is never telling you that God has changed His mind about your purpose, your potential, or your future. The immature take no as the final answer. The mature take no as the current answer. The wise understand that no today might become yes tomorrow, but only if they continue building, growing, and believing, while others are discouraging, doubting, and dismissing. Human beings are limited by what they can see, understand, and control. They say no based on incomplete information. They reject based on past experiences. They close doors based on present circumstances. But God sees the end from the beginning. He knows what you need before you need it. He prepares opportunities before you're ready for them. This is why you cannot let human no become your internal no. You cannot allow other people's limitations to become your limitations. You cannot permit other people's fears to become your fears. You cannot let other people's small thinking shrink your big dreams. When they say you're not qualified, remember that God qualifies those He calls. When they say you're not experienced enough, remember that God specializes in using inexperience to confound the experienced. When they say you're not ready, remember that God's timing is different from human timing. The no you receive today may be preparing you for the yes you'll receive tomorrow. The door that closes this month may be protecting you from entering a room that would limit your growth. The opportunity that's denied this year may be positioning you for an opportunity that's beyond anything you currently imagine. But here is the key. You must keep building while you're waiting. You must keep growing while you're hoping. You must keep preparing while you're praying. You cannot let no make you passive. You cannot let rejection make you idle. You cannot let delays make you stop developing. Use every no as fuel for your yes. Use every rejection as motivation for your acceptance. Use every closed door as inspiration to keep knocking, keep seeking, keep asking until the right door opens at the right time for the right reason. God uses man's no as direction, not defeat. He uses human rejection as redirection, not resignation. He uses earthly closed doors as signs pointing toward heavenly open door. What God has promised you in the secret place of prayer will never be canceled by public voices of criticism. What heaven has ordained for your life cannot be overturned by human opinions. What divine wisdom has planned for your future cannot be destroyed by temporary human disapproval. The question is not whether people will say yes to you. The question is whether you will keep saying yes to God's plan for your life when people are saying no to your requests. Man's no is temporary. God's yes is eternal. Keep building, keep believing, keep becoming who God has called you to be. Your yes is coming, and when it arrives, you'll understand why every no was necessary to prepare you for it. There is a moment in every life when the noise finally quiets, when the opinions of others fade to whispers, when the urgency to prove yourself transforms into the certainty of knowing yourself. This moment doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It arrives quietly, like dawn breaking over a mountain peak you've been climbing in darkness. You realize that the person you've been seeking approval from has been living inside you all along. The validation you've been chasing in boardrooms and social circles was always available in the silence of your own heart. The wealth you've been pursuing in the eyes of others was already deposited in the treasury of your authentic self. This is when true construction begins. Not the frantic building that seeks to impress, but the sacred building that seeks to express. Not the desperate accumulation that feeds ego, but the deliberate cultivation that nurtures spirit. Not the wealth that separates you from others, but the abundance that connects you to your purpose. I am Solomon, and I have watched kingdoms rise and fall. I have seen men gain the whole world and lose their souls. I have witnessed fortunes built on foundations of sand crumble at the first storm. But I have also seen something far more magnificent. I have seen individuals discover the unshakable kingdom within themselves and build from that place of divine knowing. The river that flows toward your destiny has been waiting for you to stop fighting its current and start following its wisdom. Your journey is not ending, it is deepening. If you feel this truth resonating in your spirit, become part of this community that chooses inner wealth over empty recognition. The kingdom you seek is not a destination you arrive at. It is a reality you awaken to.